The Mustang was struggling in the red mud, sinking inch by inch. Robert Vance sped up to drive past. Animals were none of his concern, but when he saw the sign for St. Clair Ranch, he slammed on the brakes so hard he nearly crashed. What happened next? No one expected. Subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Do you believe in karma? Because this story will make you rethink a lot of things. Let's begin. Robert Vance didn't believe in karma, he believed in profit. At 59, he had transformed the historic districts of 3 cities into parking lots. 5 generations of families lost their homes so he could earn a few more millions. Last week, an 80-year-old woman had pleaded at his office door. She wanted 30 more days to move furniture from the house where she was born. Robert didn't even lift his eyes from the contract. "Mom, sentiment doesn't pay the rent. The kind of success that impresses in a business magazine. The kind that impresses no one at 3 a.m. That stormy afternoon, he was driving his German sedan down a rural road. Returning from a meeting where he had bought another piece of history to turn into concrete, his GPS had conked out 25 miles ago. Rain hammered the windshield like bullets. Robert cursed under his breath. He hated when plans went off track. That's when he saw the horse. The Mustang was stuck in a ditch beside the road, sinking in the red mud up to its chest. Wild by the desperate thrashing of its hooves, its untamed mane, and eyes that had never known a rope or saddle. It must have been about 7 years old, strong, but clearly losing the battle against the muck that sucked it down like quicksand. Robert slowed down out of curiosity, not compassion. Compassion was a luxury for people who could afford to be poor. He was about to speed up when he saw the faded sign on the fence, St. Clair Ranch, 1952. His foot froze on the pedal. St. Clair, the name he hadn't heard in 20 years, the name that still made him wake up in a cold sweat, the name he had buried along with... No, he wasn't going to think about that, not ever again. The horse whinnied, a sound that cut through the rain and something inside Robert's chest. The animal was exhausted, its nostrils flared, muscles trembling from effort. It probably had 30 minutes before giving up completely. Robert looked at his Italian suit, his genuine leather shoes, his hands that hadn't touched mud in 30 years of executive life. This wasn't his problem. He had a meeting at 7, dinner with investors at 9, time is money, and he didn't donate either. But St. Clair. Damn. He pulled the car over to the shoulder, leaving the engine running. He stepped out into the rain that instantly soaked his $15,000 suit. The mud reached his ankles when he stepped into the ditch. The horse saw him approach and struggled harder, distrustful, truly wild. It had never trusted a human. Robert knew exactly how that felt. "Easy, you idiot," he muttered, more to himself than to the animal. "Let's get this over with." He grabbed branches, rocks, anything he could find for leverage. He pushed, pulled, fought for 40 minutes in mud and sweat. The horse, in a last desperate effort, managed to brace its hind legs against a thick branch and propelled itself out. It stumbled away, panting, but free. Robert stood in the rain, covered in red mud from head to toe, watching the Mustang trot away into the field. The animal stopped about 50 yards away, turned its head once, as if in thanks or farewell, and disappeared into the storm. When Robert looked at the abandoned ranch in the background, with its peeling walls and empty windows, he felt something he hadn't felt in 2 decades. Fear. Because St. Clair wasn't just a name, it was an unsettled account. Robert returned to New York City covered in mud and with 47 missed calls. His secretary nearly fainted when she saw him enter the office, dripping mud onto the imported marble. "Mr. Vance, what happened? The meeting with the Korean delegation? Reschedule it." He walked straight past, leaving muddy footprints all the way to his private elevator. In the shower of his penthouse apartment, Robert let the hot water wash away the red mud, but he couldn't wash away the feeling that something had changed. Something small, imperceptible, but different. The next morning, something unprecedented happened. Robert hesitated before signing an eviction order. The folder was on his desk as usual. The Miller family, matriarch 89 years old, 7 grandchildren living in the same house for 40 years. Property value, $3 million if demolished. Estimated profit, 400% in 18 months. Robert picked up the pen. He opened the folder. He read the names. Eleanor Miller, 89 years old, diabetic, widow. The pen felt like lead in his hand. Small, almost insignificant. But anyone who knew Robert knew that wasn't normal. "Mr. Vance?" His secretary peeked through the door. "The lawyers are waiting." 5 minutes. He closed the folder without signing. He pushed it to the side of the desk. He picked up the phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in months. Silverman Investigations. "I need information on a property. St. Clair Ranch, a rural county in upstate New York. I want to know the current owner, legal status, and history for the last 20 years. That'll take about 3 days, Mr. Vance. You have 24 hours. Robert hung up and stared out the window of the 47th floor. New York City stretched below him like a gray chessboard. Every building, every street, every block was worth money. That's how he had always seen the world, in market values. But that morning, for the first time in decades, he wondered what lay beneath the concrete. What stories had been buried? What voices had been silenced? The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Vance, Mrs. Eleanor Miller is here. She says she wants to talk about the house." Robert froze. "Send her up." The old woman entered, leaning on a cane, her white hair in a simple bun, her blue eyes still bright despite her age. She sat in the leather armchair and stared at him fearlessly. "I came to ask for more time, Mr. Vance. Not for me. For my grandchildren to find another place." Robert studied her in silence. Eleanor had the same quiet determination he had seen in the stuck Mustang, the same refusal to give up. "How much time do you need?" 6 months. 6 months is a lot of money, Mrs. Miller. "I know." She opened an old purse and pulled out a yellowed envelope. "But perhaps this will change something." Inside was an old photograph. St. Clair Ranch, 1985. A man about 35 years old next to a blonde boy, perhaps 12, both smiling on the porch of the house. The man in the photo was identical to Robert today. The boy was himself, 20 years younger. Robert felt the world spin. "Where did you get this?" "My husband worked at St. Clair until it closed down. He kept a few things." Eleanor leaned forward. "Mr. Vance, don't you remember me?" Robert remembered. Eleanor Miller had been the cook at St. Clair Ranch for 15 years. She made the best pecan pie in the county. She always gave an extra slice to the boy who spent his summers at his uncle's ranch. The uncle who had died exactly 18 years ago. The uncle Robert had abandoned when he got sick. The uncle who died alone while Robert built his first million. "Your Uncle Sebastian talked about you until his last day," Eleanor said, her voice soft as wool. "He said you'd come back, that when you grew up and stopped chasing money, you'd remember what truly mattered." Robert dropped the photo as if it burned him. "My uncle was sick, delirious. He was lucid when he died, Mr. Vance, and alone." The word "alone" cut through the air like glass. Robert stood up abruptly, turned to the window. New York City twinkled below, indifferent to the earthquake happening on the 47th floor. This is where things get ugly, because it wasn't a coincidence. It never is. Sebastian Hayes had been more than an uncle. He had been a father when Robert's real father left home. He had been a teacher when Robert couldn't even tie his shoes. He had taught the boy to ride, to fish, to understand that a real man protects those who cannot protect themselves. Robert was 19 when Sebastian was diagnosed with cancer. He had a business school scholarship, a promising future, a beautiful girlfriend. Sebastian asked him to come back to the ranch, to stay close during treatment. Robert promised, and disappeared for 15 years. He called once in a while, sent money occasionally, But he never returned. He was too busy building an empire, wooing investors, trampling competitors. When he finally found time in his schedule to visit his uncle, he received a phone call. Sebastian had died the previous morning, alone, on the same porch where they had shared coffee every summer morning. The ranch was auctioned off to pay hospital debts, Eleanor continued, relentless as a surgeon. Sebastian held on as long as he could, waiting for you to show up. In the end, he even had to sell the horses. Robert closed his eyes. The Mustangs. He loved those wild horses. He let them graze on his land, put out water and rock salt for them. He said they were free, just like you were as a boy. Eleanor stood up. Some of them still live around here, old but stubborn, just like Sebastian. Robert turned slowly. Why are you telling me this? Because yesterday, when my grandson saw a man in an expensive suit saving a horse stuck on the St. Clair Road, he took a picture. Eleanor showed him her cell phone. I recognized you instantly. You still have the look of a lost boy. In the photo, Robert was covered in mud, holding an improvised rope, his face contorted with effort as he helped the Mustang out of the ditch. He looked like a stranger. He looked like the person he had been a long time ago. Sebastian always said, "When Robert remembers who he truly is, the horses will bring him back." Eleanor put away her phone. I think yesterday they kept that promise. Robert remained silent for a long minute. When he spoke, his voice was different, lower, more real. 6 months, Mrs. Miller, your family can stay. She smiled for the first time. Thank you, Mr. Vance. Sebastian would be proud. When Eleanor left, Robert was alone with the 1985 photo. The boy in it smiled with a joy he hadn't felt in decades. He smiled because he was home, because he was beside those he loved, because he still believed that being good was more important than being rich. That night, for the first time in 18 years, Robert cried. Robert cancelled all his engagements and drove to St. Clair. The ranch was worse than he imagined. A collapsed roof, peeling walls, rusted gates. Time had devoured the place like termites devour wood. But the mountains in the background remained the same, blue and eternal, silent witnesses to everything that had happened there. He parked where the corral used to be. He got out slowly, like someone treading on hallowed ground. The silence was absolute, broken only by the wind in the trees and the distant sound of running water. That's when he saw the envelope tacked to the house door. Paper yellowed by time, handwriting shaky but legible. For Robert, when you return. Uncle Sebastian. Robert tore off the envelope with trembling hands. Inside, a 2-page letter and an old key. My dear stubborn boy, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means you've finally come home. It took you a while, but I knew you'd return. The Hays always come home, even if it takes a lifetime to remember where it is. Robert leaned against the wall, his legs weakening. I don't blame you for disappearing. The world out there must be fascinating for a smart boy like you. You must have achieved everything you dreamed of, but I hope you kept a little corner in your heart for the simple things I taught you here. The weight of guilt was devastating. 18 years of silence, of unmade calls, of visits postponed forever. The key is to the back barn. I kept some of your things there, and also something that might interest you, the ranch deeds. It's all in your name, my boy. Always has been. I never sold it because I knew one day you'd want to come home. Robert stopped reading. He reread the sentence 3 times. Sebastian had lied to everyone, including himself. He had held on to the property until he died, even when sick, even when he needed money for treatment. He had died poor, so Robert would have an inheritance. Take care of the Mustangs for me. They're free, but they need water and rock salt in the winter. They're stubborn, half wild, half tame. Just like you when you first came here at 8 years old. Robert had to stop reading. The tears came in waves, 18 years of dammed-up sorrow. That decision cost $12 million. For the first time in his life, Robert didn't care about the price. He went to the barn. The key still worked. Inside, covered by tarps, were his childhood belongings, a small saddle, adventure books, photographs of the ranch in its heyday, and on a table, the documents that made him the legal owner of 500 acres of land worth a fortune. In the back of the barn, he found something that broke him, a calendar from 2005, the year Sebastian died. Each day in December was crossed out with a red X. On the 23rd Christmas Eve, someone had written, "Robert said he's coming tomorrow." Robert never went. He was too busy closing a year-end deal. Sebastian died on the 25th. Alone, waiting. In that moment, alone in the abandoned barn, Robert made the decision that would change everything. He would stop building buildings and start building bridges. With the living, with the dead, with himself. He wasn't doing it for the horse. He was doing it for the person he had disappointed, for the person he had loved when he still knew how to love. Robert sold half of his businesses in 3 months. Honestly, that's the part most people ignore. Changing your life isn't a weekend epiphany. It's a brutal choice, day after day, when the whole world pressures you to go back to who you were. His partners were furious. His ex-wife laughed in his face. His adult children, who only called when they needed money, said he had lost his mind. Robert changed anyway. He sold the penthouse apartment, bought a simple house near the ranch. He woke up at 5 in the morning to put out water and rock salt for the mustangs, just as Sebastian used to do. The wild horses were slow to trust him. Some never did. But they came to drink water. It was a start. The real transformation began when Robert sought out every family he had evicted in the last 5 years. The first was Eleanor. He offered the deed to her house back, no strings attached. She accepted but didn't smile. "This doesn't erase what happened, Mr. Vance, but it's a start." The second was harder. Mario Sanchez had lost his auto repair shop to one of Robert's malls. 3 generations of work demolished to become a department store. When Robert showed up at the door of the trailer where Mario now lived, he got a punch in the nose. "My father built that shop with his own hands," Mario shouted, his eyes red with rage. "You destroyed 60 years of history for what? To have another Ferrari in your garage?" Robert didn't retaliate. He let his nose bleed. "I can't give you your shop back, but I can give you the means to start over." He extended an envelope. "It's not charity, it's restitution." Mario didn't open it right away, but he didn't tear it up either. The third family was the worst of all. The Olsons had lost not only their home, but their son. Peter Olson, 16, had taken his own life 3 days after the eviction. He couldn't bear to see his parents sleeping in their car. Robert found the mother, Constance, working at a diner. When she saw him, she stopped breathing. "My son died because of you," she said simply. "What do you want here?" Robert had rehearsed a speech. In the moment, he could only tell the truth. "I want to carry this burden with you forever, not to feel better, to never forget what I did." Constance studied him in silence. "Burden isn't divided, Mr. Vance. It multiplies. Are you sure you want this?" "I am," she nodded. "Then every week you come here, every Sunday, 2 p.m. We'll visit Peter at the cemetery, together, until one of us dies." Robert accepted. Redemption isn't about being forgiven. It's about doing differently, even knowing you might never be. On weekends, Robert renovated the ranch house, alone, with his own hands. Every plank replaced was a silent apology to Sebastian, every wall painted, a promise that he wouldn't run anymore. The mustangs watched from a distance, wild but curious. Sometimes the dominant male would approach the fence, eat rock salt from Robert's outstretched palm, and walk away unhurriedly. It wasn't domestication. It was mutual respect. One Saturday afternoon, while repairing the porch where Sebastian had died, Robert heard a voice behind him. Dad? He turned. Luke, his youngest son, 23, was standing at the gate. He had driven 250 miles to see him. I came to understand why you disappeared, Luke said, and I came to help you. For the first time in 2 years, Robert truly smiled. 2 years later, St. Clair Ranch had become a sanctuary. Robert was 61 now, grey hair, calloused hands, wrinkles from having cried and laughed in the right proportions. The Mustang he had saved from the mud was about 9 years old, still strong, still wild, but accepted Robert's presence as part of the landscape. The sanctuary protected 47 wild horses across 200 acres of preserved land. Robert had used the rest of his fortune to buy neighboring properties and prevent real estate speculation. A Mustang's place was in nature, not under concrete. Luke came every weekend. He had dropped out of business school to study veterinary medicine. I want to care for them the way you do, he said one afternoon, watching the herd graze. I want to have purpose. Funny, we spend our lives running from death until we realize it's the only teacher who truly teaches us how to live. The routine was simple. Wake with the sun, check on the horses, maintain the fences, receive visitors interested in responsible adoption. Robert discovered that simplicity wasn't a punishment. It was freedom. Every week, he still visited Peter Olson at the cemetery. Constance had become a friend, not an enemy, not out of forgiveness, but mutual understanding. Both carried deaths they couldn't prevent. Both learned that carrying it together is more bearable than carrying it alone. One autumn afternoon, Robert received an unexpected call. Anthony Stone, a businessman known for destroying historic landmarks. He wanted to buy the ranch for $50 million. Think about it, Robert. With that money, you'd be a millionaire again. You could go back to New York City, back to the real life. Robert looked out the window. The Mustangs grazed peacefully. The sun gilded the mountains. Luke was fixing a fence, humming. This is my real life, Anthony. You're wasting your talent caring for horses. I'm using my talent to be human. Robert hung up. Anthony was what he had been. Rich, empty, convinced that success is measured in zeros in a bank account. He didn't feel anger towards him. He felt pity. That afternoon, while putting rock salt in the trough, Robert found something that stopped him in his tracks. A small, simple headstone among the trees. Sebastian Hayes, 1945-2005, cared for all who needed him. Luke had made it in secret, with the help of the local builder. I thought Uncle Sebastian deserved to be here, the boy said awkwardly, where he was happy. Robert stood in silence before the stone. He finally managed to say the words he hadn't said at the funeral. I'm sorry, Uncle, for not being here, for taking so long to come back, for losing my way. He paused. But I didn't lose myself forever. I'm still your stubborn boy. Only now I know what truly matters. The wind rustled the trees. Somewhere in the pasture, a Mustang whinnied softly. That night, Robert dreamed of Sebastian. In the dream, he was sitting on the ranch porch, drinking coffee as they did on summer mornings. Sebastian smiled. Took you long enough to come home, boy? Forgive me, Uncle. No need. You came back. That's what matters. When Robert woke up, it was already dawn. Through the window, he saw the Mustang he had saved grazing near the house. The animal raised its head, looked at him for a moment, and continued eating. It was as if it said, "Welcome home." On the 3rd anniversary of Sebastian's death, Robert organized something he had never done, a celebration. It wasn't a delayed funeral. It was a celebration of the life Sebastian had lived, of the people he had helped, of the legacy he had left behind. 200 people came from the county, farmers, shopkeepers, families Sebastian had supported through tough times, people Robert didn't even know existed. Your uncle was a saint, said Mrs. Rose, who lived 12 miles away. When my husband died, Sebastian showed up every Sunday for 6 months to help with the harvest. He never charged a dime. He taught me to read, recounted John, a retired builder. I was 40 and ashamed to be illiterate. Sebastian said, the shame isn't not knowing, it's not wanting to learn. He taught me until I could read the Bible on my own. Robert listened to dozens of stories. Each one revealed a man he knew but had never fully understood. Sebastian wasn't a saint. He was a good man. A crucial difference. Luke had prepared a mural with old photographs. Robert saw himself in several. A blonde boy riding a pony, fishing in the stock pond, sleeping in the porch swing. In all of them he was smiling. Smiles he had lost for 30 years and only recently rediscovered. I want to say something, Robert said when it was his turn to speak. The crowd fell silent. You knew a Sebastian that it took me 40 years to discover. As a child, I thought he was just my uncle. When I became an adult, I thought he was just an old-fashioned country bumpkin. It took me decades to understand that he was what we should all be, someone who leaves the world a little better. He paused, looked at the mustangs grazing in the field. This place will remain a sanctuary forever, but not for him. For all the people he touched and who now touch other people, good multiplies just like evil. The difference is that good takes longer to appear, but it lasts forever. That afternoon, when everyone had left, Robert stood alone on the porch with Luke. The Mustang he had saved approached the fence, as it did every afternoon. Robert held out his hand with rock salt. The animal ate calmly. He trusts you, Luke observed. No, he respects me, it's different. Robert stroked the horse's neck. Trust you gain easily and lose even easier. Respect you earn slowly, and if it's true, you never lose it. The sun began to set behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and purple. Robert had seen thousands of sunsets in New York City, always through apartment windows or car glass. He had never truly paid attention. Now he did. To everything, to the flight of the birds, to the sound of the wind, to the quiet breathing of the horses, to Luke's laughter. Small things that cost nothing and are worth everything. Dad, Luke said, are you happy here? Robert pondered the question. Happiness was a slippery word. It meant different things to different people. For him, it meant waking up without fear of being who he was. It meant not having to pretend to be accepted. It meant knowing that when he died, someone would miss him for the right reasons. I'm whole, son, and that's better than happy. I can't go back and be the nephew I should have been, but I can be different today and tomorrow and for the time I have left. Sebastian believed in second chances. The Mustangs gave me mine. Now it's my turn to pass that on. This story's about regret, about words we didn't say, calls we didn't make, people we left behind while chasing things that don't matter. If you have someone you love but are distant from out of pride, out of anger, out of being too busy, don't wait until you need a wild horse to teach you what truly matters. Call them, write to them, show up. Because unlike Robert, you still have time. And if this story reminded you of someone, or if you believe in second chances, share it. We never know who needs to hear this today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.